and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips. After a long hiatus, we have resumed. Hopefully, because my Wi-Fi is a little sus today. Just a little sus. I am your host, Anne. We are also joined by our ever-present and omnipotent hands of digitalness, Quindy. And Justin and John, they get an honorable mention. Also, wait, you're here, so hold on, let me get over here. Okay, up. And Kiki! Yeah. Ever-present and omnipotent hands of digitalness, right, Quindy? Right? Hi there, silly girl. You smell like a dog, to quote my husband. You smell like a dog. You do. She's like, well, I kind of am one, Mom. I kind of am. Can you look up? Ooh, there we go. Look at the camera. Good girl. She's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's you. Yeah, good girl. Good girl, Keeks. Good girl, Keeks. Oh, she's a good girl. Oh, thank you for the kiss. Okay, sweetie. Ready? You have your bully. Yep, you've got your bully. You've got your cushion. You've got your birds to scare away. Good girl. Are you all good? You all good? Oh, the bully's already moved down a little bit. Okay, we need to go back. Not this one. We need to finish it from yesterday. Two. The richness. You're rich with bully sticks, Papa. Okay, be good. Be good. Alrighty. So we cannot run too late today because I have a call with Kiki's new prospective dog sitter for Hawaii. Oh, Nomadzik, thank you for the resub. Oh no, Twisted Oma, I'm sorry that your cat's internal biological clocks have been screwed up. 45 months. Wow, that's a long time. Kiki didn't get a trip this week. She got one last week, Twisted Oma. We went to Yosemite last week. This week was me going out to visit Kiki's little half-siblings. Oh, you good girl? She's going to settle right by there. You're going to settle right by the gate. You want me to leave the gate open? Do you want to be in here? 1 second. I might have a mopey dog. Hey, mopey dog, do you want to come in here? You should go get your bully stick. Yeah, you can come in here if you settle and are nice, okay? If you settle and are nice, you can be in here with me. You just can't be distraction, okay? We'll see how that goes. Yeah. All right, so Kiki is present. We're giving her a chance. Yep, settle and be good. Oh, and I'll open up the window because she'll be happier if it's cooler in here. There's the window. All right. Whew. Yeah, I know, right? It's terrible. It is terrible. Hi, Keeks. Good girl. Yeah, would you lie here except that all this stuff is... No, those are upcoming models. That's what those are. She's snoodling a bunch of models I put here. Oh, no, Twisted Oma. No. Never a good idea, to have strange dogs with the puppies during a vulnerable, phase like that. Sometimes the mom will have a big problem with it because it's a strange dog that Kiki hasn't been there for, almost a year. So, yeah, no. That would have been, Twisted Oma, if you think about that would have taken me an entire extra week off because it would have been 3.5 days to drive out, do the LER, 3.5 days to drive back. And I would be blown out. I would be like, I'm not streaming for 2 more days. No, some places are not drivable on a whim. And yeah, when you've got young puppies, you don't invite strange dogs over. Not really. Not unless you really trust them. And they have experience with puppies. Wait a minute. What are you doing? Oh, good girl. Yeah, bully sticks are fine. She's going to be a total distraction. Yeah, plus honestly, when you're the breeder, you've got 7 puppies plus 4 adults to care for, plus a ton of puppy people coming through. And the last thing you need is another chaotic, thing, right? The last thing you need is one more instrument of chaos. And Kiki is definitely an instrument of chaos. Just speaking truly anyway. But yeah. So that's why there are many reasons why you wouldn't take your adult dog to a place like that. Plus, adult dogs have full immunity to all that environmental stuff that puppies have their mom's immunity, but you don't know when that immunity is going to wear off after they stop nursing. So puppies are still pretty vulnerable. That's why you have to be careful when you're taking home your 8-week-old puppy. They can pick up on all sorts of bacterial infections and stuff like that, and things that adult dogs can just throw off. So you don't want to bring an adult dog in that's been tracking all over the place. Hey, Papa. No. She's like, but she may be too much of a distraction. Leave it. Thank you, good girl. I left I had the closet open, and the closet's where I keep all my miniatures, but it's also fascinating. Isn't it fascinating? Yeah, you're good. Settle and chew, you little dingo, or I'm exiling you. Settle and chew, or I'm exiling you. Yeah. Yeah, it's just a responsible breeder thing, where you just make sure that you keep your puppies as safe as possible. Yeah. Yeah, and not stress out the adult mom either, the dog mom, I mean. Alrighty. Yeah, I would love for Kiki to see her mom again, but we'll do that at the Nationals, at the Shiloh Shepherd Nationals, which is in the beginning of November in Colorado. All right, so we just have some basing here to finish, and I need some grass. And I was debating using my mixture. I wouldn't. That and just why would you add an extra 7 days of travel time onto your trip, right? Even if it was a good idea, that would just be dumb. I'd miss out on 7 days of work. An additional 7 days of work. Common sense says nope. All right. But yeah, some of you on my Discord already saw pictures. The whittle puppers. I have just a few. I was just thrilled today because I bought a bird bath, and birds were bathing in it this morning. Let's see here. Where are my puppy pictures? There we go. So this is the cutest one. They're all sitting nicely, waiting for their treat from Bridget, who has the raw food, the raw beef. Yeah, so she's got that bowl of raw beef, and she's making little meatballs, and they all sit. Except Green Boy is really smart, and so is Orange Boy, and so essentially they figure out that she goes in order. She goes from here around the circle. So originally they were over here, but they figured it out and they jumped in line. So, yes. And when I say Green Boy, Orange Boy, it's collar color. That's how you usually tell them apart. They all had names, too, from Critical Role. So, this is season 2. I can never remember what Green Boy's name was, but that was Caduceus. So they're smart little bubbers. Smart little bubbers. Yeah, and that was Snowdrift Puppy, the one that was born in the snowdrift after they thought all the puppies were out. That's Yasha. So, and it's really rare for us to have such light-colored puppies in a litter. So we're very curious to see how they actually turn out, what they actually look like as adults. But yeah, so they're so cute. You can see their little tongues are out licking. Yeah, they're cuties. Oh, I think I even have, hold on, video. Let me see if I've got back up a little bit. There they are. And there's a little boy visiting. You can see his feet back there. He's trying to get the puppies to come over so they can get their meatballs. So that's cute. Very cute. Just a short little video. And I think that's it. Yeah, and then, totally conked out. 8-week puppies spend a lot of time sleeping. Looking to see other cutes. Big smiley face. Big smiley face. I think that was Red Boy. Red Boy is so sociable. That's Yasha again. So very, very pale color. Usually we have a lot more. Usually it's much more like those other pups where you see a bit of sabling. Yep. So there they are. Kiki's half brothers and sisters. What are you doing? Tell me you're being good. Okay, I gotta double check. You being good? Are you being good? Yeah? Are you being good? Yeah, you be good. We're giving Kiki a little bit more leeway as she has developed adult brain cells, but I still have to check on her because, you know, puppy. She's still a puppy. She's 11 months old officially now. Yeah. Yeah, so they were very cute. Very, very cute. And they were very soft temperament compared to Kiki's litter. So that's why I went out, because when you breed a girl to different boys, you get a really, a better picture of all the things that she can produce as far as, and that if Kiki has a boyfriend and has puppies, then I'll have a better idea, having done these litter evaluations. I'll know kind of what she's likely to produce based on what her siblings and half-siblings were like. So, genetics. Since you can't do genetics for everything in a dog, that's your way of figuring out what you're likely to see in the litter box. My old mentor, our breed founder, always called it the shadow dog, is like the traits that you don't see in your dog, but that existed in your dog's litter mates and half-siblings, and that show up when your dog has a litter out of nowhere if you haven't been keeping track. But if you spend time looking at what your dog's sibs look like and act like, then you have a better handle on what you're likely to do. So yeah. Alrighty. So I was gonna do a more I grabbed my random basing stuff. So this is my random basing mix, by the way. This gives you a really organic result when you use it. It has, you can see little grains of sand and gravel in it. There's also static grass. There's also little clumps of flock in it as well, like add the actual little, ripped up pieces of that foamy stuff. There's also just basic like oregano, like herb mix, just because it makes, if you have an old bottle of oregano, it can make great basing material because it's already crumbled up little leaf shapes and tiny little bits. It's like leaf litter. It is leaf litter. So if you have an old spices and you're buying a fresh bottle, because you shouldn't ever use old spices, you can use your old spices in a basing mix like this, as long as this stuff is the right shape. Wouldn't use rosemary. It's the wrong shape and way too recognizable, but oregano you can get away with. Then the little seed pods, little birch seed pods, these guys for random leaves. I think that's the only stuff I've got in here. I may have a couple different... The sand is really fine and is not too much of it. But you can see how when I'm mounding it up like this, it's hard to see, but it makes really natural shapes as you bunch it up and mound it up. And that's what the benefit of doing a random mix like this is. And I know that a lot of... some companies put out shakers for this sort of thing. I actually like it better when I can dip the base in. They're dried, Kodiak. So, I mean, they stay in the bottle without going moldy. As long as you don't put moisture in here, you're fine. And if they continue to break down in our mix and make smaller and smaller pieces, it's just going to add to a more organic look. I mean, usually what causes plant matter to decay or to mold or to do any of that stuff is the presence of moisture. So I keep it in this Rubbermaid Tupperware. And there's nothing moist in here with it, just other stuff. Oh, that's a big blob of super glue glommed together gravel. I don't need that. But yeah, I mean, spices in their bottles will stay decent indefinitely. Like they're not like, they won't, as long as moisture doesn't get in there, they just are there. They're just like little bits of plant matter. So I figured they could be little bits of plant matter just as well in my mix here. And I've had this mix for over a decade, and these, as you can see, were just fine. So, I mean, I didn't really think about it. It's not something that you need to micromanage with this. Like, honestly, just dump a bunch of crap together. Like, I had a bit of extra static grass. I had some extra sand and gravel mix that was really fine and weird, and I didn't have anything else like it. I had a little package of fine flock that I wasn't going to use. The only thing I would say is you've got to use stuff that's finer. You don't want big chunks in this. It's all going to settle to the bottom. But there's not really, I don't know that it's really PDF worthy. It's just, it honestly is just toss a bunch of crap together. I forget the name of the company that's doing the shakers of this kind of thing, where they're putting together a bunch of different stuff and putting it out in a shaker, but you really don't need to. You really can just like do whatever. And then the little twigs and bits, like sometimes in your spice mixes, you will actually have little stems and stuff, and those are in here too, and they make great little sticks. Like they'll just plop onto the base and it'll look like a tiny stick, and it's in scale. But yeah, so I was thinking about using this, but then I realized that I don't have a lot of room here to really, when I use this mixture, I like to heap it up and put multiple layers on. It looks more natural that way. But we don't really have a lot of room on this guy for that, so I may just use some of the leaf litter. I don't know. I guess I could try. I could try just a little bit in here. Maybe I will. I like it because it looks much more natural than just static grass. You can use this, yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of companies I think out there that do a premix, but they charge you a lot for it. And it's like, you don't really need that. If you have static grass and you have, like, you could buy small packages of flock at hobby stores or online. You want the fine flock. And it's cheap, right? It's just foam. It's just, like, crumbled up foam. And then the little leaves are more expensive unless you live in an area with tons of them, which I do now on the West Coast. But these are just parts of an old package. I didn't put a lot in there. With the leaves, I try not to do overkill. I like to place them a little bit better, but I'm having a little bit in here is fine. Yeah, right. They smell, they lose their smell. That's why you don't use old herbs, is you lose the flavor and the scent. They just like dry out. They desiccate further. All right, so let's try it. And I almost always use super glue with this rather than white glue because the super glue will encourage everything to bind together and clump up so that it looks a little bit more natural and less planned. So we're going to try to do just this really try to keep it under control. So yeah. But yeah, obviously with the gamer mix, with the companies that are putting out mixes like this, you're not going to find probably oregano in there. But oregano has been, like, for a long time, I think even model railroaders used to use it. But you can see how even, like, I get banks and stuff building up because there's just enough, like, things cling together and there's enough bigger pieces in here that it creates a natural mounded look. You can see that in here. And when you heap it onto the model, you can get it to do kind of that same thing. So I think it was the last model Werner did for Reaper. He did an Elf Queen, I think, for us a few years ago. 5 years ago now, I think. 5 or 6. But I did this kind of treatment on the base of that. I built up clumps. Like I put one layer and then I built up. So it made it look more irregular and more natural. So, all right, anyway, let's just actually put some glue down and play with this. Wanted to do a little bit different basing today. And I decided I didn't just want like the clumps of grass and stuff since I put such effort into trying to make this look more organic. So I'm going to get my long snozzle glue here. I'm going to try to be pretty, I'm going to put it mostly in that little glob there, and then spread it out here. And put a little bit more over here. And then we're going to plop this in. I really like to just grab a bunch and just plop it on, like boom. It's not like you can't blow it off of the model. Then tap it with your finger. Whenever you're doing any static grass or anything like this or any kind of basing, tap, tap, tap. You want it to settle down into the glue, and this is true of even white glue, maybe even especially white glue. White glue has a natural surface tension that resists the basing matter going into it. The reason I like to use super glue is that I get more capillary action. I probably should have painted this first, but it's okay. I can paint it first, or I can paint right over this stuff. But I'm going to heap it up a little bit more. So right now it's very flat because everything in the mix, remember, is quite fine, right? So once it's on, I can do another layer by just dabbing that and grabbing a bunch more and dumping it on the model. And tapping it to get it off, and then blowing. And then if you want longer grass and less of a mossy look, so this is what we've got. You can see a little bit of strands sticking up there. If you want more grass sticking up, that's when you grab your static grass and you put another layer on top with some more grass. And I'll probably do that after I get some of this stuff painted. But so you can see how natural that looks. It looks like it's even more so after we paint this stuff, but it's going to look just like it's like kind of growing up onto that stuff. And we'll put some more over here. I'm going to paint most of these stones real quick though. I just was so eager to use my mix that I'm like, I did it out of my usual order. Well, Thormel, we haven't been around for a bit. I've been running around the United States so much lately. With and without the dog and the husband. The only problem is now I've got a bunch of the flocking stuff on my putty. Oops. Oh well. But you can see how fine it is. Like a lot of this super fine particulate matter, so it really does get thin. And I like that. That's the fine flocking for the most part, because it's just really like grit powder. Not only does it bulk out all of the other ingredients, but it also it keeps it in scale for 28 millimeter. You don't get something that's way too chunky for 28, which is, I really like it because I hate to see basing materials that are out of scale. So yeah, all right, let's get some cobblestones. Thinking. I don't think I want to do a reddish stone here. I think I do want a gray stone. It's just going to work better with everything else. I'll put some different colors on it though, after I have it down. Yeah, it's a really fast, Quindy, really fast and easy, and you can dress it up, right? Now that once it's dry, I can paint over it and dry brush it and do all sorts of stuff. In fact, if I put a layer of white glue over the top of it, it seals it, and then you can paint and dry brush and do whatever you want. With basic materials, I usually do advise that people use a thinned layer of PVA or white glue. You don't want to use school glue ever. I use Elmer's All-Purpose. You do not want school glue because it comes up again with water. You don't want that because you want to be able to paint over it. But yeah, white glue is, I guess Mod Podge probably the same thing. Any white glue that's going to actually not come up again when you put water over the top or a fluid over the top is fine. So let's get this over here. I want to add a little brown to my gray today. I'm just throwing stuff together. You could just use the Stone Gray Triad if you want. It already has brown and yellow in it. I'm going to actually just add a little bit of russet brown, actually. Yeah, I have done that. I've gotten impatient, especially when I'm trying to finish a competition model like at the con, which is why I don't do that anymore. But in the old days, I was one of those people, and there were many of us, finishing up my models at the convention. There are still many of those people. Now, however, I consider that way too stressful, and so I either have the competition model done before the con, or I don't enter. But yeah, back in those days, I was often being very impatient, and I wrecked a couple brushes. Since I do regularly use super glue for basing. My pokey tool is having troubles here. Either that or my russet brown is just like almost empty and doesn't want to come out. Sometimes that happens. Yep, finishing stuff in the hotel room. Yep, painting in the bathroom because that's where the best light is. Yep. That's it. Well, and then of course it comes out and it's like a huge ton. Like I've just totally blorfed. Total blorf, folks. Total blorf. All right, well then, we're going to have to make a new puddle of gray. But yeah. That's a tip I got from Sandy Garrity back at Gen Con in Indianapolis. I think the last year Reaper went. I roomed with Sandy, and she was like, oh, always do stuff in the bathroom because it's got the best lighting. Just drag a chair in there. Best tip I ever got from Sandy Garrity. So yes, if you're a last minuter, so I'm going to just grab a little bit of that russet brown. I'm going to pop it in here. Just want a little bit. Russet has so much yellow in it that if you go heavier, you might actually end up going brownish green. You can see the difference though, that little bit of brown makes. It's a much more organic look. It's less kind of bluish. Let's just mix this up just for fun. Okay, that's actually not bad. There's enough oxide in there. So we can use this as actually a highlight / dry brush for the gravel, the remaining gravel. We'll just add a little bit of water to it so it stays good. Because I do like, if I'm going to dry brush gravel, I start with a very dark brown usually, or moderately dark brown, and then I work up. And I do a grayish layer and usually a cream layer, just to get some kind of that dried out dirt look. So yeah, it's a thing. The Keekster has settled down. We have all sorts of stuff. So yeah, at 11:15 I have to catch a call from our prospective dog sitter and chat with him about the Keeks and set up an appointment for him to come and walk with Keeks with me to meet her and see what her walk style is like, so that he can then try to make another appointment and then he'll take her for a walk. So he's a very thorough person. I like this new prospective dog sitter. I hope he decides he's a good fit for us. So we're kind of like seeing you. We're going to meet each other and see if we are a good fit and if Kiki likes him. Oh yeah, Agent Marvel, I bet. I bet the housekeepers have encountered worse stuff or weirder stuff. So this is actually a pretty light gray. And I'm probably going to do a wash over everything. I think I'll do that. I don't do washes often, but for all these little bricks, since I had to try to match the I think I will go medium with everything and then go with a wash. So remember, if you're going to use washes, that you do want to go more with a medium. Don't go with a dark color if you're going to put a wash on. Washes are best when they've got a fairly large difference between the wash and the base coat. There's definitely a point where you can push that too far. And I'm going to use some gray into this dirt surrounding as well. And I'm going to grab this brown that I accidentally mixed, and I'm going to use it too. And I'm going to push it right up to the edges of my basing material. Which is pretty dry by now. And I can also take some of this brown and kind of like bring it into the gray and kind of go back and forth, get it a little bit more organic. So as we get that blocked in. But you can see how I can push it right up. Because the flocking is super fine, that's kind of a bonus because I can bring this paint right up to the edge of it, and it really doesn't, like, sometimes with static grass, it's really hard to push the paint in among the strands, so you can't see any of the raw basing material through the grass. Here, this is so fine that it's settled into the gravel so well that I don't have to worry about that. There's no rim of light colored gravel around my basing material. It's all great. And if I want to, I can bring the brown into that basing material a little bit. Yeah, I do have some loose gravel here. You find all your loose gravel when you start to paint it, but that's fine. So as I bring in that brown, you can see that's a nice organic color. Looks natural. I like that. I like natural. And I'm still going to put basing stuff over here, but I'm going to do it brown first. We'll get to that. But yeah, this is a good dirt color in general, so putting a little bit of it over my stones is pretty okay. All right, now we're over here. Cover up all our stones with the gray. And it's funny because this gray is actually almost exactly the Bones USA color, this gray that I've mixed with the russet brown in it. So I had to make sure to cover it all over. It's hard to see where my paint is actually going and where it's just the raw material. And this is the moment of truth where we see how much our green work really blends in. If we have any awkward places, we're going to see it. And we probably want to put a little basing material over those to hide them. Because we certainly want some of this litter and stuff to kind of creep over back here too. So we'll probably put a couple of splots over there once everything is dry. I even left a little bit of a hole here to imply that I wanted that, so I'll probably bring up a little bit here. But again, the nice thing about this grass mixture is that it doesn't stick up, right? It's very flat, and so the good thing about that is that I can put some of it on on top of the stones, and it won't puff up and look really unnatural. It's actually gonna look just fine because it just has such a low relief. And I can bring this brown into here. If I have some loose gravel, I can totally drag it onto these sculpted stones. If I did put some gravel over the stones, then it would heap up a little bit. I would have to be real careful and just put a little bit. And I think I'm going to use this brown and kind of like bring it over here to kind of remind myself that this is where I want to put a little bit of the grass, just a little. Like that up there. Even though I'm putting it over the stonework, I can disguise it a bit. Okay, I think I've covered up what I want to cover up. I'll let that sit and dry. I'm going to put a bit of a wash over it to bring out details. Yeah. And especially for a mix, right? Like I would never use just straight flocking because I feel like it looks fake. But when you mix just a little bit of real fine sand into it and some static grass and some, dead oregano or other leaf litter, then you can really get it looking cool, looking natural. I mean, you get the same, a lot of historical guys will get the same effect by building up substrates. Like they'll start with I think they start with coarse and then go finer and finer to build up like layers of like talus and rock falls and stuff like that, make it look natural. But there's an AKA diorama book that has a lot of that info in it. But yeah, for little bases, this stuff is fine enough to work really well. So yeah, that would definitely be one of the, and I don't use this stuff all the time. It really depends on what effect I'm looking for. There are plenty of times if I just want a little bit of grass, like dried grass sticking up here and there, I'm happy to use static grass or a little bit of field grass, right? Like when we were doing this guy, just little clumps of like grass and vegetation growing up. And this one, like I do a lot of, if I feel like it's a really arid or deserty base, like I feel like this is really rocky and dry base, then doing the static grass can give you kind of the spiny plant look. And I do, with the longer static grass tufts, I really like that. I like this kind of the spiny plants. Like kind of, especially if you dry brush them, you can get that spiny plant look, and that's a very deserty thing. Yeah, always paint your rando tufts, though. Because that can help, like I said, like with her, when you highlight it, you get that more spiny grass look with the tufts, right? So, and you can also spread out, like link several tufts together, like just put them really close to each other and it'll look more natural of different sizes. But I always paint them because you can change the color And then when you do that, you can get, if you really highlight it like this, you can see all the little strands come out and they look like spiny grass. So static grass tufts are not like, you don't have to like limit yourself. Like you can use them and you can also camouflage them. That placement is sad looking. Look at, just look around you. Grass usually grows out of like the edges, like where edges meet, like where at the bottom or where moisture pools. So like at the bottom of a stair, where one rock overlaps another, you know, little crevices where tiny bits of soil can just like build up and the grass can put down roots. So I always think about, that's one of the things that when you really start getting into basing and you want to do better basing, that's one of the things you should study. And Aaron Lovejoy is actually a pro at this. He's the one who like essentially poked David about it, to make his basing better. But he gave David a lot of advice on like stuff to look at. Like you have to look at like things in nature and things around you. Like when you're walking down your sidewalk in your neighborhood, look at where the grass is growing. You know, it's not just growing in the middle of anywhere. It's growing where things are breaking down or where moisture is pooling or things like that. Yeah. Everybody does the super like, you know, simplified basing if they just don't care. I mean, that's fine. We're almost dry. I'm going to mix up a wash. I think I'm going to do, I'm actually going to mitigate my wash a little bit. So sometimes you don't want like something super dark. You just want to bring out some details. So rather than going with a straight brown liner, I'm probably going to add a little bit of my brown here just to make it a little bit softer so it's not quite so much black. So we're going to do a drop of brown liner. We're going to do, where's my brush on sealer, shake it up really well. The flattening agent always like settles out a little bit. You can kind of see it there clinging to the bottom. See that white layer there? So that's the matting agent settling out, and there's the bead caught in it. So make sure to shake until you hear the bead go. Yeah, it depends. I kind of get there a lot, Quindy, but sometimes I like to just like kind of relax and do some basing. Like this guy, I had a strong mental image of where he was, and so I didn't mind spending a little extra time basing him. But sometimes, as you guys know, I just don't have a strong image for the character, and then the basing kind of gets half-assed, and that's just the way it is for all of us, right? I'm going to put 4 drops of brush on sealer in there. 2 drops of water. Actually, I'm going to start with 1 drop of water. I'm going to add a little bit of that brown to it. Where's my mixing brush? There I am. Okay, so right now that's where it is. So brown liner has a lot of black in it, right? You can see that. I've only added 1 drop of water, so I definitely can make it more fluid, but I want to kind of look at it. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this brown just on my tip of my brush right there. It's going to soften it. See how it softened that a little bit? Now it's not quite as black. Like so. So now you can see how that's more of a gray brown instead of the blackish color. I like that. Sometimes you don't want that black. Like the liners make great. I'm going to just, I think I'm going to put that 1 drop of water in it. 1 drop. There I am. There we go. Yeah, sometimes you just don't want that so stark. You want it a little more natural, especially when I'm doing basing. I want to outline all these little rocks, but I maybe don't want to outline them like with little black lines. We'll see. Hey, Big Chimpo. Whoop, there's movement. The Keekster is moving out there. All right, so now let's get a nice big floofy brush. Where's a big floofy brush? There. Well, that's maybe a little bit too big of a floofy brush. Let me grab my Winsor & Newton. It's over here. I have a couple of number 2 brushes now. Number 2 brushes are nice for washes on 28. You could go even bigger if you were doing a big base. And for those who are coming into the stream late, if you want to hear me talk about flock mixes, like mixing sand, leaf matter, static grass, and flock, fine flock, and why it's a good choice sometimes for 28mm bases. You're going to want to go back and watch the VOD on this. So I'm using that kind of built up organic basing material here. I usually do like a simple, like I can always do sand and gravel. Like I know Agent Marvel, I always at least do like a sand and gravel with a couple clumps of grass, you know, if it's a gaming base or something, just to give it a little extra oomph. Unless it's like, you know, if it looks good on a plain black base and I just am not inspired, then yeah, I won't do anything. All right, so I'm using a big brush. And I'm gonna kind of test it because this might not be dark enough. I may have gone too light. Remember you want to make it pool on here, guys. So you want to add enough of it that it's actually pooling. And I'm doing both my sand and gravel and my basing. I'm hoping this will give me just enough definition that I can go back and highlight. Remember that it will dry lighter than it looks, as all paint washes do. I can still see my brown streaks areas through it. Don't often do washes, but with all of this different texture and with the bricks being so small, like if this was a big flagstone base, I wouldn't bother with the wash. I would just line it. It's less work for me. I'm gonna have to bring this back up, but you can see how this is just enough of a wash to bring out all those little bricks, and when it dries, it's gonna be a little more subtle. But it does bring them out. It does outline them. It does make them stand out. So now I can go and do a quick highlight on a lot of these guys. Probably just a little bit of stippling with 2 colors. So yeah, since washes do add extra effort, since you do have to go back in and highlight everything now, I don't often do them, but if I have a lot of little texture like this, then it does save time. Yeah, you know, it's just fine. Like, generally don't do it for a painting competition, but even though it's painters is not supposed to judge basing, or basing is 5%, we do expect there to be some basing. Unless it's a model where it's obviously like done for a design choice. Yeah, that's true, Quindy. Bones always does. We're always censored. The internet always assumes we're being dirty. I mean, in most humans' cases, the internet is right. So, speaking about being annoyed at the internet, Amazon has my ire this morning. Yeah, gaming minis don't matter. Nobody's gonna call you on that. Heck, if you painted them, most people are gonna be like, "Don't care! Oh my god, you painted your models." But you can't, like, accept everything. Plus, I bet Autobot is a little bit weird. So now we need to wait for this to dry, and while we do, I'm going to lighten my gray a little bit, I think. I'm going to add a little water to it, and add a little bit of cairnstone to it. And I'll probably use cairnstone as a further highlight. Yeah, it's just... the automod on Twitch and like all this stuff is really sus, Turgeon. I mean, look at my D20 roller that stopped working right on my channel. I haven't even gone in and to see like if I can fix that. I probably have to redo the command or something. Like, it's Twitch. It's twitchy. That's why it's losing market share to YouTube. Oh, did you like it, Gibson? I thought it was a fun little book. I think not all auto mods are created equal. I also think there's probably a thing in the algorithm where just to make sure. But yeah. No, Amazon screwed up my product page on the UK Amazon store. And I ran ads on that this week, and so essentially my ad money was wasted because it wasn't showing my Kindle edition. Yeah, good. All right, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Gibson. Yeah, so that book, Legends and Lattes, has essentially like inspired a whole new subgenre of cozy fantasy novels. Lower stakes and kind of comfort reads. And some of them do have a little bit higher stakes, but it's like, no, it's kind of like cozy mysteries where they vary. Some of them are obviously very comfort based, like very cozy. You're safe in those books, and some of them have more risk, but still don't go graphic into the violence and stuff. So the thing is that with some of this, you're going to get kind of a greenish tone to your stone. I mentioned that before. I'm definitely seeing a bit of it. It doesn't look it, but after the wash, I'm definitely seeing a little bit of greenish. And that's the yellow in these browns that's interacting with the black. So, however, I also have this green, very green flocking material, so my green isn't really carrying through a lot. And if it did, I would be okay with it because it just implies a lot of like microflora probably growing there. But yeah, so I like the cozy fantasy genre. Sometimes I just want to read a book and just like not worry about whether I'm going to get hit with graphic, etc. And I just want a nice little story that makes me happy. And that's kind of what cozies do. Although I personally feel like my favorite brand of cozy fantasy still has adventure and risk in it. But not a lot of like graphic nasty stuff. That's just my favorite blend. But yeah, so there was another cozy fantasy I read that I thought was actually pretty well done. I haven't read the second book yet. But yeah, I think it's going to be a thing, that genre. And I hope so, because I want to write mine. I guess mine will just be a fantasy if it's if that's not a real genre, quote unquote, at that point. But there seems to be some interest in cozy fantasy, so. So I'm doing a little bit of light from the front on these stones. You can see it. And that's it on purpose because most of my light's going to be coming, kind of like this, I figure, at the figure. So if you have to pick a direction with a 28 millimeter, usually your light's going to be coming from this direction going that way. So you can get away with like doing mostly that kind of thing where the light is mostly on the edges and fronts of these stones and kind of you keep the shadow toward the back like that. It works. Oh, is there an upcoming sequel? Oh, good. Yeah, I hope to. I mean, he does a lot of writing for the video game markets. So I hoped he had another book in him. Good. Excellent. Let's do more. Let's have more awesome cozy fantasy. But yeah, cozy mystery is such a power genre these days. People like that kind of feel, and people also love fantasy, so it makes sense that it would be a genre. And again, I'm going to just concentrate on this side. You can see, just to really give the feel of the light. I am going to pay attention to where my shadow's falling too. Here, I am going to highlight these stones just a little bit because they're out in front of him a little. I'm mostly using just kind of a little stippling stroke, but I've also thinned down this paint a bit, so it's not going to like show big brush strokes, but it is strong enough for us to see that first highlight. Oh, Tor picked him up, yeah. Yeah. Like, Tor is like the only publisher at this point that if I was ever approached, I might say yes, but they are the biggest. I think at this point they are the biggest fantasy and science fiction genre publisher. And their chief editor is a guy who taught me at my science fiction and fantasy writing workshop. Patrick Nielsen Hayden, who's multiple Hugo Award winner for Best Editor. He's a cool guy. Also, as I found out recently at Cory Doctorow's talk, is Cory Doctorow's editor. Just little dabs, and this can be honestly very therapeutic. Like painting anything. Yeah, I always wanted, when I was a kid and I dreamed of being published by a big publisher, like Tor was it. Tor was the one who published a lot of my favorite authors, and they're still there, still kicking. You know, got bought by a huge multinational conglomerate like everybody else, but it is what it is these days. But yeah, so yeah, if anybody else listening to this is thinks cozy fantasy sounds like an interesting thing, look at Legends and Lattes and see if you might want to pick it up. So again, just giving it a highlight, being consistent about where your main highlight is on cobblestones and flagstones will help give a sense of like real light kind of slanting across them, and keep you from getting that outline around all the rock kind of artificial look. Oh, nice, Gibson. Yeah, I bet that was his reader magnet. Whenever there's a prequel story or an interlude story, or in my case, my case is also a prequel story, since I wrote a story about Valaman and Emset and how they met, and that was a long time ago, before my book. But yeah, it's pretty common to use those as reader magnets to get people on your mailing list. So I bet that was his reader magnet. I bet since he can't use it anymore, or maybe he can. I don't know. Maybe he decided to do a new one. Sometimes that's a thing. After you've had your reader magnet for a while. I'm not sure when you get signed. If you've been indie published and you get signed, I do know they make you take all other versions of your book off the shelves. I don't know if they have you. I don't know if they re-edit them. It'd be interesting to look at the Tor copy and see. So I have to think about shadows here, and the shadow is really falling right around here, so I'm going to resume my highlighting. Probably back there. Yeah, I'm not sure what happens with your mailing list, considering that people like Alona Andrews have their mailing list still. Maybe they just maybe that was just something that he suggested, or they decided they wanted to do. I wonder if he signed trade only, or if he signed total. Because these days, if you sell a lot of copies, you can get a little bit more freedom in your contracts. A lot of indie authors only sign print only deals. They won't sign away their ebook rights, which is smart. Because really where the trade publishers, where the big publishers shine is in the print distribution and promotion markets. Hey Roger, I had a good weekend until I came home and realized that Amazon screwed up my ad listing. So I'm out, I'm not like I'm out a ton of money, I'm out like $12, but it's still really annoying, and part of the rest of my day will now be devoted to wrangling with Amazon over the fact that my ebook is not showing up on the UK store, which is where I was running the promotion. So I got a lot of people looking at my book and nobody buying it because there was no ebook version, which makes me... And it even has a page. It has a Kindle page, but it doesn't show up with a buy link. It's really dumb. It's apparently something that is happening to other people too, so... It did, however, acquaint me with the fact that it's very hard to figure out how to get a hold of Amazon. Like, if you actually want to call them, God forbid. If you want to talk to a live person, it is very difficult. There we go. So we've got, and that makes things look a little bit more, so I just didn't highlight the part there where I want the shadow, so it ends up looking like a shadow. And I'm going to do one more highlight with, probably with Cairnstone with just a little bit of this gray in it. Even though Cairnstone is slightly greenish, that's the yellow and black pigment interacting. It doesn't actually have green in it. Yeah, I was hoping, because I'm doing running these little advertising campaigns to learn how to run advertising campaigns. I was excited to see what I was going to get. I got a fair number of clicks too, so I probably would have sold at least a couple books if my listing had actually been there. Grumble, grumble. Grumble, grumble. Oh dear, Zachariah. Oh dear. David would be mega glaring at you for that one. He does not like puns. One asks why he married me. I've just been, giving him more pun armor. Is just it. Every once in a while I'll hit him with a zinger just to watch him like stand up with a face and walk out of the room. He is currently obsessed about Diablo coming out at the end of this week. He took Friday off so that he could just play. So Kiki and I have been informed that we are game widows as of Friday. I'm going to play too, but I'm not going to be quite so obsessed about it. I just like puns. I can't help it if I just like puns. I prefer like clever puns. But every once in a while I like a cute pun. And it's the cute puns that make him go stomp, 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 stomp. Oh yeah. I mean, pre-ordering lets you play over the weekend, right? Like coming up. Like essentially that was pretty clever of them because like all Blizz's, game releases, they tend to release like Tuesday or Thursday or whenever their maintenance cycle is, but Pretty brilliant to say if you pre-order, you get it 4 days early so you can get it on Friday and play all weekend. Just going to do little touches of lighter highlight here. And I'm not doing the entire surface on the front of these, but that does give it a bit more punch. Here I'm going to try to bring up a little bit over here too. I'm really just using the very tip of my brush on this. Then I'm going to use some of this color to also bring up the gravel. But I'm just going to get the outer edge here. But yeah, so I do want my ebook version to show up on Amazon.uk since I did actually fill in the pricing for all these other countries. And now I feel like I have to go and check all of the other countries' Amazons to make sure that my book is actually showing up. Well, I guess you know where that player's priorities fall, Gibson. It's fair. That was actually one of the things, this is going to probably amuse everybody, but that was one of the things that David, like, before we got married, that was one of the things he warned me about. He's just like, just so you know, when Diablo 4 comes out, you're a widow for a while. You're going to be. He warned me about it before we got married. He knew. So at least he was up front with me and I knew what I was walking into. Oh, I played the beta, Gibson. I played their Server Slam weekend. It was fun. Like, it wasn't like, I wasn't like addicted to it, but it was good fun. Once I played a druid and it took a little bit for my character to get up to where I was really having fun. But once I got my Wolf Guardian, like, summons, I was like, ooh, this is super fun now. Yeah, I played that. Server Slam was free, so I just did the Server Slam, and that was my try because I was like, well, maybe I'll play Diablo with you, but we'll see if I enjoy it because I liked 3, but there were lots of things I didn't like about 3. So, and it is just like kind of a time waster. But then again, sometimes after work, I just want to click heads, and Diablo is a perfectly feasible head clicking option. It's not quite as head clicking as Overwatch. Not quite as gratifying in some ways, but yes, David was very straightforward about Diablo. I knew. It was on my radar. But then you didn't like what they did. They did some stupid stuff in that game. Like the whole play through the storyline and then play through it twice more. Pretty dumb. But yeah, so I decided I would give it a go. It makes David happy. Mostly, honestly, like I could just let it pass. But it makes David happy when I play games with him. So if it's gonna make my hubby happy, then I'm gonna do it. Just maybe not a little bit. You know, he always knows to run 2 different characters. One for his obsessive play all the time, and one for playing with me. Because I like to go slower. Right, yeah. Yeah, we'll see, Gibson. We'll see. They seem to put a lot of work into this one. And they got roundly panned for the whole mobile Diablo crap. So, we'll see. I really enjoyed the start of it, the story. And David hates story. Like, he normally totally ignores story, but he even was saying, I really like the story in this one. It is creepy. It's very creepy. It's Diablo, of course. But I think they might have taken all their good writers and took them, put them on Diablo. Oh, that's too bad, Gibson. Yeah, I mean, I just remember playing... Yeah, no, seriously. Wait and see the reviews. I mean, I do that about every movie. Like, I might be interested in a movie, but I will wait and I will see what other people think before I waste my time on it, because I'm... So I totally get it. That's why I decided to play the Server Slam, is because I was like, let's see if I even enjoy this. There we go. So now we got some nice highlights there. So let's get our gravel. Yeah, we'll see if it's good. I'm hoping it's good because, like I said, the story is really well done so far. I like it. I mean, the intro is especially creepy. Like the first part. All right, so now I want to go over this. I want to mix a little bit of my Kieran Stone with my brown here to get a bit of a lighter brown. A little bit of a lighter brown here so that I can go over the top of this gravel a little bit with the brown. And then I'm going to go over it with a lighter gray. And then I'm going to go over it with my Kieran Stone. And that's what I typically like to do if I'm going to do a gravel. I like to use a brown earth tone, but then I like to do also a gray because there's going to be little bits of stone and stuff in there. And then I like to do kind of a cream or an off-white because when dirt and stuff dry, they tend to go very pale. But yeah, I agree. Blizz varies these days. I really feel like it depends on the franchise. I feel like WoW is just hopelessly repetitive and really not inspiring these days. I had high hopes for Dragonflight, but I dropped it even before the end of the first cycle. David still plays it, but he doesn't even seem as into it. Now, of course, he'll go to Diablo. So just a little bit of highlight. Yeah, just movies are just like they're time consuming, and I'm honestly most of the time I'm not looking for a time waster, and if I am, I'm looking for something that I can be involved in. I guess I don't like passive content these days. I am gonna do a little bit. I did highlight a little bit of the stuff that I wanted to stay brown, so I do need to brown a little bit of this. Just a little bit of stipple of that brown in there. There, all right, we'll get that back there. And I'm gonna grab a little bit of gray. And you do want to make sure your brush, I am drying off my brush on a paper towel this time, because if you are gonna do any, it's not really dry brushing because I still have wet paint on my brush, but if you're gonna control your paint, you wanna make sure especially with a big brush like this, you wanna make sure it's all out, all the moisture is out of your brush as much as you can before you load up your paint to do the kind of side brushing thing that I'm doing. I'm going to grab my gray and do a little bit just over the top. I just want little bits. I don't want to cover over the brown, but I want to bring in some of this gray that's on the stones. You can see that, how that blends it in a bit. Because like this earth here is just really where the stone has started to break down and been overwhelmed by growth. So I want to suggest that. So I want to bring in some of that gray. I'm going to grab some of this Kieran Stone and do just a couple of little touches. And that makes it a nice salt and pepper look over the top there, which is great. Really, I like Overwatch too. But then I like Overwatch. So I've really enjoyed that they're keeping up with a production schedule on it. I like the battle passes, actually. It gives me an incentive to play, because there's always a good Mercy or other support skin that I really like. And of course, I also love the esport. I also love Overwatch League, so I just want to see them succeed with it. But that's just me. Everybody's got a different opinion on that one. Alrighty, so there we go. But yeah, WoW just feels like they're phoning in the story at this point. It's so predictable. It could be AI written for all you know. Alright, so I want to do a little bit of dry brush over the top of the screen. I think I'm going to grab some of my pale color. With this basing mix is one of the only times I will not completely repaint basing. Because it's got so many different colors of stuff in it, it actually looks good by itself. And because it's so fine and in scale, I feel like it doesn't need a lot to accentuate it. But I will often, because I do just at my core, I do feel sometimes like the basing material just looks a little bit different from the painted model. I'll grab a little bit of my cream color, or in this case, my stone color, because it's my light color. I'm going to just try to get a little bit across the top here. And putting just a little bit of paint helps to damp down, because static grass can be shiny. And so putting just a little bit of paint over the top here with a lighter color helps to bring out those details, see? And also flattens down those shiny bits, those shiny static grass bits. And that is enough to make it look like it belongs on a painted base now. Yeah, I totally wrecked this this sticky tack. You see it? It's all covered in the flocking. All right, now I'm going to add more of my flocking around the back and then do a brush over the top of it, and we will be good. And I'll make sure that I check on the base itself to make sure I haven't smudged paint on it. But yeah, when I want to do a little bit more elaborate basing, I go for these bigger rounds by Reaper instead of the smaller ones with the curved bases. I do the flat-sided, wider ones. This gives you enough room for a slightly chunkier model, and it also just gives you enough room to do a little bit more. If you guys recall, that's what we did on this lady too. She's got the same base, I believe, or close to it, real close to it. But that's the same kind of style base. This gives you a little bit more room to do stuff. If you want to put the model up on a ledge or on a step or something like that, but you don't want it to make a huge thing. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that, Gibson. That's all fair. I mean, I like the battle passes. I can see why they had to do it, because you have to monetize somehow to keep the game going. But, you know, I totally get it. Like, if you had a 6-man, yeah, I know people who had a 6-stack were very, very sad that they dropped it to 5. I kind of like how it plays with 5, so... for me, but I didn't have that. I didn't have a 6-stack at all. I barely had a 2-stack. So. But yep, everybody's got, you know, it's totally valid. All the points you bring up are totally valid. All right, I'm going to do some green back here. Yeah. So again, doing a little bit of glue here. It's going to spread out a bit when we dump stuff on it. Here we go. Boing. Tap, 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 tap. And then tap, 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 tap. That gives us a nice little additional green a bit to break up our I'm going to do a little bit over here too to creep it over here, and that'll give it a really organic look. Yeah, Fortnite drives income through in-app purchases, I think, right? I don't play Fortnite. It doesn't appeal to me, so It's not my kind of game. I think Overwatch is the only PvP I've ever really enjoyed. Guess when it comes down to it, most companies are greed driven. It's just like how they express it, and whether you like the game enough to ignore it. All right, so I'm going to bring in a little bit. I want a little bit of breakup here. I left a little piece here where I could creep in some green. And I'd like to, rather than confining it over here, I think I want to creep it up a little bit. But we'll see. It'll probably creep up on its own under the influence of super glue. Just a little spot there of green. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, I could see that you would be unhappy with the choice to go to 5. I honestly think I like it a little bit better as a 5-stack, but that's just me. Looking at it completely from not having skin in the game of, you know, having a 6-stack. And I'm not a Counter-Strike fan. I like Overwatch is the only shooter I play. The only one. It's the only one with the aesthetic I like. It's the only one, like, I'm not at all, like, into military stuff, so Counter-Strike is boring to me. I like the superhero fantasy-esque sci-fi, you know, kind of sci-fi superhero shooter kind of thing. Science fantasy shooter kind of thing, I should say. So, yeah, there may be a day when I just get sick of Overwatch and Blizzard. It hasn't happened yet. We'll see. Yeah, I mean, I guess you would call this a scatter material. I don't use it in a shaker, and it's completely homegrown. I did it myself with the materials. But I actually prefer super glue, Richard, because the basing materials don't have to, like, you know, with white glue, I feel like there's a surface tension where the basing materials don't settle in as well, where the super glue just, like, the surface tension is much more fluid, and so it'll just, like, instantly, like, get up and bond with everything. The other thing I prefer about it is that I can build up layers of it to give a clumpy appearance, just like real vegetation, especially if I'm doing a base with a lot of this particular stuff on it. So now we gotta let that set. We gotta not fall prey to Anne and Quindy syndrome, and try to dry brush our basing materials when they are still full of super glue that is wet. I thought the battle pass, like, you do get free stuff on Overwatch still, I thought. Like, you don't have to buy the battle pass. It's just that, you know, all the good tiers are the paid battle pass. I thought, but don't quote me on that. Oh, yeah. Well, that was true in the old days, too. Yeah, surface tension. Yep, drying time. Yep. Yes, you can do thickness in one go with white glue. That's for sure. Although I don't know, I find that I can just get a really organic look with the super glues. I haven't tried white glue for this stuff in so long, I don't even, like, know how to use it anymore. Because I didn't like my first experiences with it. I just went super glue. Yeah, if it's your absolute favorite brush. Yes, exactly. Totally, right? Yes, and using super cheap synthetic brushes helps you too. Yeah, and synthetic brushes are perfectly fine for side brushing and, you know, dry brushing over the top of this stuff. So I think we're good. Yeah, it feels hard. So I'm going to grab a little bit of my white Cairnstone, wipe it mostly off, and then brush it over here just to get that static grass not to look shiny. Mostly that's what I'm just focusing on. Oh, here's one of my little twigs. See, we got a little twig, guys. One of the little stems from the herbs. So it looks like just a little twig. I could paint it brown if I wanted to double down on that. So just a little bit of dry brush over basing materials, honestly, helps them look like they belong on a painted base. You don't have to do the whole thing. You don't have to paint the whole thing. Just a little bit of dry brush puts it in scale. That's true, Gibson. I do feel, though, that they've, like, Overwatch didn't really... I'm sure people miss loot boxes. I don't at all. I would much rather have a finite goal to work toward on a battle pass than to get repeats and copies over and over and over again with loot boxes. So for me, I like it a little bit better. And I want the game to be able to fund itself. I just want Overwatch to stick around. Until they do something to it that absolutely makes me loathe it, I'm willing to be on board pretty much. But yeah, I totally see your complaints though. They are absolutely and I wouldn't be surprised if many people felt like you, but I have a very emotional connection to Overwatch because it kind of saved me when I was in the middle of like surgery land. And so it'll probably take a lot to get me to not love Overwatch. It was there for me in my dark hours, so not just a game for me. All right, so I put a little bit of brown coloration on our little stick there. It's still showing up pretty well. But that just, again, that irregularity, just the having those little pieces of vegetation and stuff in here really help to just make it look more natural. Yeah, I had pretty much everything. Like I have every single Mercy related thing ever. I don't think there's any skins I'm missing or any. There might be some emotes or something I'm missing, but I don't. Yeah. But yeah, it's fair. Like sometimes you just have a connection to a game or a show or something, and even though you know it's flawed, it has helped you through a rough spot in your life, and so you stick to it. You're just, and that is me with Overwatch. It really did help me. It came out, I think, after my third surgery. Like I was recovering from my third surgery. It came out the day I came out of the hospital, I think, and I already was getting an idea that the surgery hadn't worked. So I was real low, guys. I was real low. And it was, I'd just gotten, I'd known that the game was coming out, and I was super excited since I saw the first animated short. And so I actually bought a gaming laptop, which, by the way, is now running my stream. Good investment. So yeah, I bought a gaming laptop for it, and I had my little lap table, and I could just mostly lie in bed and still play Overwatch. Yeah, I get it, Gibson. I'm counterpointing it because I still love the game. Even with the changes. I love the new maps for the most part, and the new heroes. And I don't mind, like, maybe I don't mind the tank thing because, well, my husband plays tanks, so then I at least get a decent tank. But yeah, I still love it. I'm gonna love it until they really, like, hobble it beyond all belief, and I get sick of it, right? So, but I love the esport as well, so that keeps me playing, because I'll watch a really cool OWL game, and I want to go and play and try a new character. Yeah. But yeah, we all have these like disgruntlements and like disconnections with games over time, right? Like, except for Counter-Strike, which seems to be like just like unchanged. Like, it's been out there forever and is still super popular. Like, some companies seem to get the formula and they don't mess with it. Yeah, it's no big deal. We's just chatting. It's good that we can have chats from opposing viewpoints and still, like, you know, like, be fans of each other, Gibson. That's how you know you're a reasonable human being. There ought to be more of that in the world. Just touching up some parts now. where I got his boot a little bit painted in a color I didn't want. I think I got all my highlights onto my grass. I'm kind of looking at the outside of the base, kind of going around, seeing if I've got any particles or bit paint strokes or something on the black, but it looks pretty good. You're gonna get specks of stuff here and there, but as long as it's mostly good. I like the nice black base look. If I did get paint or a serious marring or a serious problem with it, I would paint it over with black, and I'd probably put a sealer over the top, probably unshaken brush on sealer. If you don't shake up the brush on sealer, it's a satin. If you do shake it up, then it's more of an eggshell, so a little more matte. Yep. I just finished, so we're pretty much on time. I need to catch my call from my dog sitter in 15 minutes. But yeah, so let's back up. And let's take our guy off his base, because I think we're good. And then I'm going to see how I've totally compromised this sticky tack. I'm going to have to actually, like, peel off the parts of that I've, because I can't, it will not stay sticky. I'm going to have to trash this piece. But I have tons of poster putty, so that's not a big deal. I am going to use it to pick up all the rest of the flocking on this base, though. There, good. So I don't want to get my next piece of totally compromised poster putty. So I'm going to have to remember the next time I use this treatment, I have to press it way down so that it doesn't get underneath the base. See, and that's why I would totally not like Counter-Strike at all, because I'm a totally casual player who is not very good at aiming and has I don't like military stuff, and yeah, so pretty much the game you just described, Gibson, is an automatic turn-off, and I would never even play it. Yeah, there's games for all different folks. Games for all different folks. Yeah, I think this has been a really fun paint job. I think he turned out really well. And I got to use meadow green, so hey. Yeah, right. And that's what I like. That's what I really like, Richard, is that, you know, if I'm going to do a bigger base, I really want to blend everything in and make it look like it was meant to be that way. Like, that's my pleasure in basing and doing these bigger bases, try to make it look like that. So, yeah. Thanks, Jonas. C. Jonas. But yeah. Yeah, Bobby would be proud. Meadow green. Meadow green. There it is. But yeah, I really enjoy this character. I really like how he turned out. The only thing I might do is add, because I didn't get any leaves out of my random mix, I might throw a couple of leaves on his face, but maybe not. Because, you know, when those leaves show up, everybody knows what they are. And so sometimes I feel like those little seed pod leaves are just like, at this point, I can't look at them and believe in them anymore. I probably need to get the paper cut leaves, the leaf paper cutters, and just do that. The punches that punch your leaves out. I think that maybe is the thing. But yeah, now it's 5 after, so I am going to let you guys go so I can catch my call from prospective dog sitter. And thanks for tuning in. Tomorrow we are back to our beloved Kathy. Working on that NMMs and trying to make it work on all these different surfaces. Yeah, and I'll try to talk a little bit more about like placement of highlights and stuff like that, just to make sure we're covering all that stuff. I do tend to sometimes just throw a highlight on. I know I often point out like how the light travels down the leg, but I'll talk a little bit about reflected and stuff too tomorrow. Thank you so much. And I will remember to go to my exit screen this time. I will. Yes. Thank you, everybody, and I will see you again tomorrow morning. Have a great week. Bye-bye.